Okay, we should be live. So welcome to the 16th edition of the LEIT Data Value Show. Today we've got a great subject, data as a revenue engine. It links very nicely onto my quest to find the meaning of data of business value. And today I've got Solomon Kane, I think I'll pronounce it correctly, who's I've had the pleasure of meeting at a few meetups in New York that run by Ethan, and had the pleasure of being on his podcast recently. So I'm returning the favor now. So, hey, Solomon, welcome.
Chris, excited to be here.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for agreeing to be on here. So I don't want to give a little bit of background, and I think I gave some of it away then. So we had the pleasure of meeting up at probably a few, I think, or at least a couple of Ethan's meetups that he runs, his low-key drinks meetups, which we've taken and try and do the same thing in London, and we have some great conversations there. But for the audience, do you want to give an introduction about where you've worked, what you're about?
Sure, no problem. And echo the fun time it is to go out into the real world outside of LinkedIn and meet data people and have real conversations. So to anybody listening, obviously this is on LinkedIn, and so we're both big fans of LinkedIn, but get out of the building sometimes too. So I'm Solomon Khan, and I have been, I fell into data a little over a decade ago, like a lot of people did once data science sort of became this big thing. And the thesis was, if a company could only find someone who knew statistics and programming and business stuff all wrapped up into one person, they could do this whole cool new thing called data science. And I hadn't planned this, but I had studied statistics in school, and then I worked in finance for a while. And then I had quit my finance job to learn programming and ended up at a startup. And I had sort of amassed the pieces to jump into data. And so when my company was trying to figure out how to take advantage of this new data thing, I put my hand up and said, hey, I know it's very hard to find these people, but I'm right here. And they let me run with it. And I've been running with data ever since. So I've been at startups. I've run teams at startups. I've done consulting I was at this company called Bionic that helped really big Fortune 50 companies think about new opportunities, focusing on data. It's now part of Accenture. I was at Nielsen for a little while, where I ran product and analytics and owned the P&L for the Nielsen sports business, which is focused on sports sponsorship and understanding how brands get exposure in sports content and the value of that. And then I was at this e-commerce data startup for a little bit running data. And I have now founded my own company called Delivery Layer, which focuses on getting data outside of your company. So that's my very quick background.
It's great summary there, and I think a collection of different experiences in different places that really do help shape how you can achieve the ultimate game, which is make money from your data, which sort of is the theme of this. And I think one of the things you mentioned there was running Nielsen's P&L. So they obviously had that thinking of it was a P&L account. So is that how it operated there? Was that like the department was seen as its own cost center, which is one of our questions, I think.
Yeah. So in that case, it's not so easy for data people to end up owning a P&L of a business. And in this case, it was relatively sizable P&L. I mean, I don't know to what huge companies have many different divisions. So I don't want to, but there was many millions in it. And it's just not that common for data people to end up owning P&L. But at a data company where the product is data, you are in a much better position to be able to make that transition. And so I was lucky enough that I ended up in a spot, and it was a little bit of a wartime promotion reorg situation where our division was going through some big transformations, And the like most businesses on data, you've got a mix between data experts and business subject matter experts.
Mhm.
And I didn't come from a sports background. I like sports, but there were other people that came from a much deeper sports background. But there just needed to be a lot of transformation in the business that was driven from the data side, which was how, and I sort of ended up in the spot because of that, and I was able to keep it for while I was there. Again, it's sort of a big company, so P&L ownership is a little bit different than being a GM at a small company, but at a data company, you're much more likely to be able to transition more seamlessly to the business side, and I had a background to do that, so I kind of got lucky there.
Yeah, I think Nielsen seeing it is their business about actually selling data, which we've talked about is what one of the channels you can achieve business value or monetization from. But I'm gonna jump right back to the original thing. And we use the term revenue engine. I like that term. And so when you use that term revenue engine, what are you meaning by that?
Sure. So I mean, I think that data needs to be driving either revenue or lower expenses in your business. That's ultimately the only two things that matter. And while both of them are good paths in order to show value for data, I personally really like to focus on the revenue side and where data can unlock revenue. Because in my experience, just working in companies, yes, it's nice if data can unlock cost savings, and it's important for data to unlock cost savings in many places, but businesses rely on revenue growth. That's like oxygen for businesses. Is if you can grow revenue, people are generally okay with a little bit higher expenses because the value of shifting the trajectory in the growth
Mhm.
rate of your company far outweighs the value of being a more slowly growing company that is ever so slightly more profitable. Again, there's a trade-off, and
Mhm.
there are many cases where I have really invested in saving money in a particular area because it was clear that there was a big opportunity there to make the business more profitable, or that just needed to be done. But in general, what I've found is that in the data is where you're going to be able to help unlock
Mhm.
that revenue for the company. And if you position the data team and play the type of role the data can play, then you should be unlocking revenue for the company.
Yeah, and it's I mean, me and Matt, we came on your show, and we were talking about this, and I think you're right. It's what can give the most, what is the easiest to provide that value, and if it's the low hanging fruit, you may get on some cost reduction, but the bigger prizes are going to be increasing your revenue. Um, but when we and Matt have been talking, and it's when you increase that revenue sometimes, which is an abstract, that time dimension to it. So, and how long it's going to take you to actually increase that revenue, and how long you're going to have the support of the stakeholders on that journey to then achieve the goals that you set. Um, so yeah, and so I'm interested to say when you say so data products are an easy thing to sell if it's actually got a SKU. We've talked about before. You're actually selling it as a product. That's an easy revenue engine. So, what other areas do you see as revenue engines in an organization apart from selling data or selling insight?
Sure. Yeah. So I think you're right to say that. And frankly, with delivery layer, I play a lot with companies that are actually commercializing their data as an
Yeah.
asset and building businesses on top of it, market intelligence businesses, or adding on new services for their customers that are data informed analytics or insights products. So there is that. And
Yeah.
that's something that no data person should overlook or think that it's out
Mm.
of their purview. Actually, it's kind of in your purview to say, hey, there are opportunities for our company to better make money with data. On the other side of it, I think that similar to who drives revenue in any business, the different departments, those are the departments that you can support in helping to drive revenue. So if it's a sales team, if it's a marketing team, if it's a product team, what is it that they're doing, and how is it that data is helping them move the needle to achieve ambitious goals that drive revenue and help grow your organization? So it's really partnering with the business stakeholders.
I like. I've just made note that it's different between internal, external, isn't it? So you've got an internal revenue engine where you're making your team, enable them to sell more or upsell more, get that market value to be more effective with getting sales in. It could be seen as a bit of cost optimization because you're making better use of their time, but the ultimate game is actually are selling more, so it's probably is closer to that. And then there's your outbound one where you're selling data to orchestrating it and augmenting it so it has other aspects, so it provides insight to external companies. So what would you say is the catalyst? So, I mean, every company's got data, and I've seen, for example, your large supermarket. You're going to have something valuable within that data to share with others from a supply chain or for competitive advantage. But what would a company look for when they're seeing? Do we actually have something that is marketable, that we can actually sell this data? What do you think are the key aspects that they need to look for?
Sure. So this is a great question, because so many companies get this wrong. They think that like the value in their data is for some hedge fund or groups of hedge funds to look at it and look at the raw data and parse out some insights, and then they will get paid a substantial amount for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in reality, what ends up happening is that for the hedge fund context, they're often getting the type of insights that your data can provide from many places.
Mm.
Not that your data isn't valuable, but the question is it, if it's just sharing your database raw files or raw data fields with a hedge fund, like that whole process, there's not as much of a payoff in the end, and it's very complicated to sell, and there's not much value in your raw data for someone that is not in your industry or in your business. On the opposite side, where I've seen a lot of value is for the participants in your business. So firstly, it's like your actual customers, like whatever product you're selling, whether it's a productivity suite or it's it's like, I imagine Asana, if they've got all of your product management data, could probably launch some pretty interesting consulting always on data products on top of that to help the leadership of a company understand who's doing what types of work or what categories of work are being, like, whatever. Like or if I'm talking to a company that is a supplier for a certain industry, and because of their supply data, they've got pretty good utilization rate understanding of different important things in their industry. And it's also sitting in their database, and it's not some random hedge fund that is going to maybe be able to trade off of it. It's like your customers who are already paying you a lot of money have these big business problems, and if you can help them solve it, they're going to pay you more. And that's the biggest unlock, I think, for a lot of companies when it comes to externally selling data, is that it's not some abstract thing with some abstract user who you can't really understand what they're going to do with it. It's more like, imagine your customers had access to sanitized, anonymized, obviously, you would take competitor information out of there. But imagine they had the type of intelligence that you have. What could they do with it? And then how do you help them do that? Because you want you want your customers to make more money and be more successful.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few use cases where companies can provide the banking information to their accountancy systems or to their marketing systems, so they can understand how they may have, their payments may have been used. Companies like Stripe and things like that. But yeah, I suppose when you can actually, as a company, provide that data, or even it is your own customers' data, but you've enriched it and provided some additional context to it, it's going to make their life easier, that they can gain additional insight themselves.
Exactly. Imagine that every single one of your customers is hiring data people to do the exact same analysis with your data or whatever they're getting for you. Why don't you just do that yourself and offer it as a product? That's yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I think the other thing is it's like I use the term competitive advantage, is if your company is able to prevent its customers going and using another product for something, add another feature onto your core product, that means that it becomes stickier. They're less likely to move off to somewhere else, or they may be more happy to pay a little bit more. I suppose that's another thing as well, is not losing customers is actually another thing that's useful as well, is customer retention. And I think a lot of times when companies are looking at how they use your data, or what projects get the support or the budget for it, sometimes if you've got an erosion of your existing customer base, it's sometimes best to actually tackle that, because that's actually going to lose you more revenue than trying to add more features, because you're unless this new feature is the thing that addresses that. And I think validating that is very useful as well.
100%.
Yeah. So I think, so I did a post over there about this about structure of where the CDO should fit into an organization, and we're talking about that product mentality of selling things as or using your data, and it's how it's delivered, in that using that product mentality of how you create it. How do you think your data team should be structured, and where should they report in an organization?
Sure. So my I know many people disagree with me on this one. My personal opinion on the CDO is that they should not necessarily report to the CEO. I mean, it depends on the company. If your company is like a data company and data is your product and it's the core differentiator of your business, then it makes more sense. I think for most businesses where data is not your core business, data is a support function to help your business be more successful, it probably doesn't make sense for data to report directly to the CEO. And I think when you are at that, but I think it's important to go at that next level and not report into the third level down. So you should be going to the CFO or the CMO or the CIO or CTO. Many people also feel like when data teams report into technology, then they become just sort of not a good partner to the business. They just become an implementation engine as opposed to like a business partner. I think that really, really, really depends on the specific leader. But that's such a common failure case in technology that many people will say you shouldn't report to technology people. I personally have reported to multiple technology people who had a very strong business acumen and capability and wanted data to play a very supportive business function. So I've seen it work. Many people think that it can't. And then I think at that point, there are different stereotypes of benefit or drawback to any specific department, but I think it matters more about the specific leader. I think that a good finance person versus an okay marketing person, better to go with the good finance person or vice versa. So that's my general thought. And then I've also got thoughts on how to structure data teams, which is that the embedded model where there's sort of they report into data, but they dotted line into
Mhm.
a business function is just superior to the everybody is in one team and requests go in the queue model, which I find is bad for data people, bad for business people, and not conducive to data really partnering and driving revenue. So that's those are my opinions. And
Yeah, I think
yeah,
valid. I'll go the two areas you brought up and you're breaking it down. Yeah, I think it is down to that CEO what they've set as the target, and depending on how that CEO has defined the goals for his C-suite, I think it becomes less of an issue. I suppose the larger that organisation gets, the harder that CEO message is for it to be clearly articulated to the whole C-suite of an organisation. But I've got, I did a post today which got loads of comments, and I apologise if I haven't got back to them all yet. I'll probably have to do a separate post about this one because there was a lot of discussions, and I spoke to Kyle Winterbottom on this, who's talked quite a lot in this industry, and I think it depends on many factors, and it's like true consultancy reply. It depends,
yeah,
but yeah, I think the CDO reporting to a CFO may work in a scenario where you're very much focused on fiscal improvements. It has to be. It has to be as and it really has to help with the finance in this particular area. I think, and that's a good case. And Val, shout out to Val on there as keeping it as small as possible. I think that is another key thing to achieve that. I think the CDO reporting to the CEO, I think works if you're very much a data product organization, or very much it's clear that the data is your competitive advantage in your organization. It's a data centric organization. I think them reporting to CEO makes sense. I'd question now the need for both a CIO and a CDO nowadays. They are so close together as I think information data. You ask both of them to go and write the list of activities or what they were focused on. I don't see you'd see that much difference. And I think even though we talk about data is not valuable until it's been curated and quality and all the rest of it, in its truest sense, and I've said this a few times recently, when it was defined in Latin, it was inferred it was good enough for the purpose it was to be used for. So it inferred that it was of good quality. So yeah, information data, yeah, it's it depends if you want to be pedantic, you be purist. But
data people are known to be pedantic, Chris.
I know. Well, yes, true. I put my hand up sometimes on that one as well. But yeah, so I think there's many alternatives, and yeah, CDO even reporting to CTO can work. But yeah, keeping that C-suite very focused on what the CEO objective is, and making sure the CEO is data savvy. I think understanding where data fits into his business strategy is really useful.
Yeah, I mean, my take in general is that a lot of that actually is not it practically it's necessary. You need CEO support, but CEOs, the value that data is driving, like the bar for what good looks like, should be so clear that you actually don't need the CEO to mandate anything. Like if the CEO is mandating something about data, you're in a bad place, because you've got the CEO, and this is where this is why I believe strongly the data is sort of a support function and a sidekick to the business. You've got a chief revenue officer, a chief marketing officer, a chief financial officer. You've got people with targets that if they don't hit, they're going to get fired.
Yep.
And so you are there to help them, and they want all the help that they can get, because hitting their numbers and achieving their goals is the number one at the executive level. All these people work very hard and focus a lot on their job. all they're doing all day is thinking about how they're going to hit their numbers. And if you are not providing clear help to them hitting their numbers to the point that they are pulling more support out of you and complaining that they can't get more hours of the day or more data people and making the case for you to the CFO, then what's the point, really?
Yep.
What are you doing? You're just not, you're there to be helping. And if they're not asking more for your help, then you're not really helping, because you're not going to get fired if you don't hit the marketing number. They're going to get fired. And so they need the help. So that's why I don't rely, or I try not to rely on like the CEO caring about data. I don't care if the CEO cares about data. The CEO hired a marketing leader who needs to try to keep their job and hit their numbers.
Yeah, no, and I think there's a few things that you mentioned there, which is totally agree. The first one, I think that supporting function, I think is a critical one, and also when you talked about the data team having a dotted line to someone else, to another department, and that dotted line is there because they want that dotted line there. Okay, I want that department because you've shown me how you're going to make me hit my number. And you do want to get to a situation where every single one of your pillars in your organization, your finance department, your marketing department, your sales department, your operations department, they all want a slice, or they're all there asking, like, who can I get allocated for this next thing? Because I've heard all the great things you can do. And you going up and asking budget all the time for these things, it just doesn't exist anymore, because the people's already got the budget for you and justified and saying, I can evidence why I need that to achieve my budget. And I think the thing that I didn't quite, well, the CEO needs to set what the business objectives or strategy is, and that needs to not conflict between each of the different pillars, and that's where that CEO needs to. He doesn't need to know what technology and I want a nice new shiny modern data stack, or I've heard about this new postmodern data stack, and I have one of them. He doesn't need to know that. All he wants to know is, do I have the capabilities to deliver the value that's needed, or to hit my objectives, or achieve what I've agreed to the shareholders? And that should be his how he drives all change in the organization, and also how you actually measure and track performance of each of your departments. And I think the other thing that you mentioned is that dotted line. I think we talk about this being a revenue engine. That dotted line should be that, okay, you're paying for my excellent team and their time, right? But I'm putting a premium on that because this is a cost center. I'm running as a cost center, and there's a 20% margin on top of this because you're getting the benefit of their collective knowledge and frameworks or foundations we've built that we're now bringing to you to help accelerate your journey. I fully
to a certain extent. Yeah. I mean, I know that some people have tried to like make this explicit and like internal charge outs and all this other stuff. I've seen that making it as explicit as that can sometimes end up getting tricky. And what generally works more is just sort of like talk about does your team need 1 FTE or 2 FTEs in order to achieve their goals? Or if you're feeling like it's not enough, having that discussion, but like keeping track of hours and who's spending which hours on which team and what person, that can devolve, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah, okay. I think I agree. And I think the other way that can work, which maybe is a better funding route for this, is the pay-as-you-go sort of markup on the compute or consumption that's being used there. Because if the department's using some cloud spend, some Snowflake spend, or whatever platform they're using, and okay, well, there's a small amount we'll put on top of that for that department for our management overhead, for them to help support them and on their journey. And is it hidden that way? I think the problem is having to go and ask for your budget for your team the whole time, and for some aspects they're doing it any way you can achieve that easily in a way that it just comes into your cost center. It's going to give you a bit more freedom to achieve your objective, well, your mission as your data department to build the best business value machine in the world using data.
Yeah, so I totally, and this is where just the mechanics of how you execute it, I think, are important. I don't think you try to offset X and you don't tell the marketing team, well, you're using 15% of the Snowflake bill, so we're going to charge you back this or this. I think what you do is you roll it up into one contract for the year, and you say, in general, marketing is asking for a lot. Sales is not asking for as much. Well, actually, it's always the opposite. Sales is always asking for more than anyone else, right? But your departments, your departments all have a general expectation. You come in with, this is what it seems like all of the businesses need from an infrastructure perspective. This is what it's going to take to get them. And then you have a discussion about the whole thing. And then if for budgetary reasons you need to make trade-offs, then you decide best amongst a peer group of business people where to make those trade-offs. And it obviously budgeting is very different at all different companies, and so different companies have different politics around budgeting. I have gone through this exercise a number of times, but not like only at, call it, 4 companies. So, but having talked to a lot of people, once you get to the leadership level, you understand how the best way to do it will be. But I think if you try to take that very like, like you're an internal consulting firm and charge out versus an hour, it's going to end up like putting a bad taste in people's mouths. And then also on the other side, if you stay disconnected and you're like, well, the data team needs this, and then the marketing team is like, well, what do I get out of that? I don't know. The data team just asked for an independent budget. That also doesn't work. So this kind of meets in the middle where you put together a package that works for everybody. And as long as you do a good job on execution, then everybody's happy.
I think you hit that. That was hit the nail on the head with the last comment. It's everyone's always happy to pay for a good service that's helped them get across the line. No one's ever complained about having to pay a consultancy 20 grand when they just managed to get £1 million deal on the back of it. It's just, here you go, have a tip as well.
And this is the thing, Chris. I love that you made that point, because to me, that's like, there's some cases in experiments that you run where you're looking and you take the magnifying glass out and you're like, well, at a 95% statistical significance, it looks like this experiment changed things by 0.1%, which if you look at our yearly revenue was substantial. And then realistically, at the end of the year, it's sort of like, you don't see much. And then there's another type of experiment where like you push the change and then the day after you see this massive spike and like the money is coming in and you're like, oh my God, that nobody needs to ask whether this was a good idea. It is abundantly clear based on what happened in the business that you just did something really good. And I think that that's where any data person or data team should set the bar. It's not, and not that you're always gonna be able to achieve that, or even within any given year be able to come up with an insight that moves the needle that much. But I think what people don't understand is the disproportionate impact sometimes of like a really good idea. And therefore people, it's this unbalanced class problem where you might only come up with an idea like that once a year, once every 2 years, but the impact of that might make your career at that company. And I don't think that data people spend their days thinking, is this the thing that's going to make my career at this company and move me up 2 levels because of how big of an impact it made? I think they're like, okay, somebody asked me for data and I'm just supporting them. I think for the data people that like try to understand what might this be able to do, it's shocking sometimes at how effective that can be.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what I use this term a lot: art of the possible, selling what can be achieved. And I use this in the stuff we're writing about the evidencing. If you're able to, you have a case reference of and they may not be that often, and in law it's not that often as well. Is you'll get some case law that's now used to win over every single case that sits like that, because it sets that baseline of how it should be done. And I think if your data team can create enough case references for you in your organization, that has shown that proven way of achieving the goal it was set out to. And I think that's what you're selling as your department. And you go back to that thing again, is you're able to use a track record to show, look, you spend this money, you will get this amount back within this. It will give you the return on investment. I hate to use that ROI, but it will provide that benefit within a certain period of time. I think it's that period of time. It's always a challenge. I've worked on some large budgeting projects for big transformations, and the ones that always seem to win, it's the marketing department. They come along and say, "Oh, I'm gonna get 40 times ROI by implementing Salesforce, using Scott Taylor's version of the company we well know. He's one of the puppets. It's called Salesforce. But it takes 2 years to go and implement it, and then by the time you have implemented it, we all know the truth. It wouldn't have provided that value that it said it would have, because it was moved on and the project had failed and the CMO may not be there anymore. So yeah, it's a tough one to build up enough belief that when you're saying this stuff, it will happen. But I think there's a data or the community, we haven't been very well with doing this in the past, which the C-suite always remember that bad. Oh, remember that time we told you to go to Hadoop? Look what happened then. And yeah, but that's different this time. This don't worry. This is not a technology. We're not doing a knee-jerk technology transformation. This one is really going to add value. You told me that before. So yeah, I think that's a challenge that we need to get past.
Yeah, totally. I have this idea of like a third, which is that if you look at your overall team, probably a third of your time and investment should be towards like immediate ad hoc requests, people trying to tactically do things day to day to hit a number in the business. A third should be medium term efforts that are like, hey, we don't understand why people are churning. So how do we make a big data project, dive in on the product side, on the marketing side, on the customer segmentation side? Are there insights there that can help inform business strategy? And then a third are sort of those longer term infrastructure plays. Our data is in too many silos, or we've got some really bad technical debt that we need to address, or you've got other stuff, and then you spend a third of your time on that. And to me, it's an aspirational balance, and different times you're going to be overweight or underweight different parts of that. But I think having 2/3 of the focus be on short to medium term benefits that across a larger team can show a lot of value being driven now to the company gives you also the runway to move with those longer term, bigger strategic projects where, you might not see any impact a year from now, but that doesn't mean your data team isn't driving a lot of impact because you're spending a substantial amount of your time on things that actually move the needle right now.
So I think that's a really good way of thinking of it, a third, which and again, we all live in this perfect world sometimes, and then we realise that it has to meet the business. And I found the problem with that is going back to that payment piece. Who's paying for this time, and who's deciding? Who's going to call rank and say, that this thing you're doing over there, that your innovation stuff, I don't care now. You're not doing it anymore. You've got to do this over here because I said so. That's where more of a challenge organisation, what goes back down to that structure thing we're talking about, is having a good strong or a good structured C-suite that is going to help facilitate those challenges and make the right decisions, not decisions based on emotional attachment or which department wins over another one. It's one business. It should be what helps the CEO achieve his goals, which everyone gets their bonuses on. But we know that's not always the case. I think the other interesting one, and I've had this kind of like, I talk about competitive advantage. What is the value of having competitive advantage? And it's that same and that mindset of going, look, I'm going to put a third of my budget that I had from whatever, whoever signed that off, to look at some of those forward-thinking, innovative projects, or the ones that I know that, look, my platform's creaking over here. I know that it's at max capacity. It's that on-premise one. I know to go and move it to this new shiny one. I can't do it all overnight. I need to go and get to these things put in place before it becomes a problem. That's when some forward thinking and using that part of the budget to help achieve that is the balancing act of the CDO of how he achieves that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have a compelling vision, and if your data team is doing a good job, and everybody, to the example that you made, if the consulting company that you just spent $20,000 on has just helped you close $1 million more of annual revenue, then if they come in saying, "Hey, I know you like that, but actually there's this $50,000 thing that is going to be even more impactful," then you're going to have a lot of political capital to make that case. And it's going to be straightforward, because you're proving that you can deliver for the business. If the only thing that you're doing is saying that at some point in the future things can be delivered, but we can't do anything this quarter or this year, then understandably people are going to be skeptical about some huge payoff in the end. People, including all of us who have been around the industry for long enough, have experienced that most of the time these huge, big, long-term transformation projects are extremely painful.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think you described sort of one of the other concepts, which I talked about, physical sort of growth, which is you need to make a growth within that year. The CFO is normally your person that wants to, he's going to help drive that. But then I think you've got that future revenue growth. You're I've used this one before, the Uber. You're going to wait 13 years till you make any money. But you're investing on future prize. I think what you're describing there, and I think it's an approach I fully support, is that hybrid. It's that optimizations funded growth. So where you're being smart with your money and having those little projects that are the quick wins that can help fund or get the credibility for those longer term strategies, which you're not going to be able to report the successes for that to 9, 12, maybe 15 months away, but you've got enough good news from the other ones that each month that keeps people on and keeps people giving you that checkbook. What do you want? You want to do saving money? Yes, no problem at all. Here you go. Take the pen, write it out yourself now. I don't mind. I trust you guys. And I think as long as you keep delivering, and I use evidence it, and as long as you're able to support with good evidence or good track record, or that good other departments selling for you, showing you saying the benefits you've done, and it will be, the data world will be a nicer place, less mean, as we say. So we've been going all around the topic, but there's a couple of points we have there, and we're going to come back to it. Is centralized versus decentralized, and we've gone from one side to the other over the years. I think it was very much centralized when I started. It went a bit decentralized crazy. I think we're coming back to centralized again. How do we talked about that team structure and that, and I think I already know your answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. So, what's your view? What's your view on where we centralize and where we don't?
Yeah, I mean, the centralization is probably more on the data engineering side. If you're gonna centralize where you want to have common infrastructure across the company, but I actually don't want to say company. I want to say division. Like, I think that there are logical groups inside any company, like, and big conglomerates. They've got, like, I don't think GitHub and LinkedIn should both need to use the exact same data setup just because they're both owned by Microsoft. They're
Yeah, agree.
independent, multi-billion dollar companies who can afford their own data teams and can decide independently. I think if you've got different divisions in your company and you've got, a $100 million division and a $200 million division, those are big enough businesses that if you've got a data leader for them, they should be able to make independent decisions where it makes sense. I think what doesn't make sense is that the marketing team and the sales team and the product team inside an individual division have different data, because that data all needs to be connected together in order to provide value at the business unit level. So this starts to get into, like, bigger company data structures and data
Yep.
mesh and all of that. So we don't need to get too far into it, but I think there's a logical group that you call a company, and that should be consistent. It's understandable how you have sort of a centralized data infrastructure and engineering there. Maybe that taps into a bigger organization, maybe that doesn't.
Yep.
On the data analyst side, the people that are actually working with business units, I think that they should be dotted line into the business units and direct into data, but it could be the opposite way. Sometimes you have them direct into the business unit and dotted line into data. As long as the relationships are strong on both sides, I think I've gone both ways and been pretty flexible. It's like, if this person, if you really want them on your team and if it's like more individual focused. If there's a data analyst who wants to develop their career and be a data leader in the future, it makes more sense for them to be in data. If there's a data analyst who actually wants to be a marketing leader and grow into be a CMO and that's their aspiration, then why wouldn't you have them report into marketing? Like, that kind of is better for them, as long as there's a strong relationship on both sides.
Yeah.
And I think that's much better than centralized, because the problem with centralized is that there's no partnership. It's just, you don't understand their business. You don't understand their priorities. You just understand the next ticket that comes off the queue. And from a business perspective, all of the effort that you just put into educating that person on the other side about the context of what's going on, you don't have to do that again the next time something comes up, because it might not be that person that answers your ticket the next time. Also, it gets into these massive infights between the different functional groups around who gets to prioritize what hire. Marketing is like, no, we really, really need this thing answered. And product is like, no, you don't understand. We really need this thing answered. And it's just a total mess, total mess. And instead, if marketing just has essentially their own queue and their own set of, hey, you've got your 2-person or 3-person marketing analytics team, use them however you would like. They need some percentage of their time to focus on data infrastructure stuff and other data team stuff, but kind of, 2/3 or 3/4 of it can be for the way that you prioritize what you want. Everybody it's just such a better way, and it's better for everybody.
Yeah, I think there's it's that true consultancy quote. It all depends, doesn't it? I think that having some guardrails put in place that are set up, some foundations that are then subscribed to by any decentralized teams, is the right approach. You don't want your data to be seen as a bottleneck, and your data team can't have the domain knowledge required for each of the specialist areas of your organization. But it's that whole frustration piece of, oh, we can do this much quicker, or we'll spin things up ourselves, or we'll create some shadow IT, or we'll create our own our own warehouse on Google, even though we've got a Snowflake, because we were able to put our credit card in. So yeah, I think it's.
By the way, that's the real question in data. It's not centralized versus decentralized. It's teams or tools, and business units are looking, and tools are getting better at a very fast rate, and it's understandable. Like, because I'm building delivery layer, and it is going to be almost impossible for a data team to invest enough in solving the specific problem of getting data to your customers in a first class way. You could never do it in comparison to a company. That to me is a much bigger existential question about the way that data teams are structured. It's not centralized or decentralized. It's the marketing analytics tools that try to do a lot of the commodity stuff that data people are doing out of the box.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw this one coming. I made me a giggle as well. Common sense org people alignment to strategies. The reality is that a lot of businesses don't support the use of such common sense. So we've all seen that a little bit. Maybe over time, with all these great material out there that Solomon puts out, we put out, that people will get that common sense approach in organisations. I don't know if it was JT or Romano or something, but it's not got LinkedIn user. So yeah, funny comment. So yeah, I think you're right. There's it's the right approach for the right organization, but data products, data mesh comes into it, as well as approaches that can support that decentralized approach. I suppose we better save the best subject till last, Ernie, because obviously delivery layer. So I think I just put here how the delivery layer adds value. So do you want to get a little bit more about what you're doing at delivery layer? I mean, you touched on it earlier. But there you go. Here's your sales pitch piece.
Yeah, sure. So if you think about the modern data stack or the postmodern data stack, or however you wanna describe it, it's really meant to support internal decision making, and that is what it's built for. And the minute that data needs to leave your company, it all kind of falls apart, because there are all of these assumptions about permissions and usability and customer account structures and who can see what data pieces, and what ends up happening is for most companies that are building data products, or frankly even just for companies that need to share information with their suppliers, you're building a lot of custom software, and it is expensive. It takes years to build. I mean, the typical data company with data on the shelf is going to take 2 or 3 years to launch a customer facing product. And that is challenging, Chris, because as we all know, hey, give us a boatload of money in 2 or 3 years, and then we'll end up with what you need at the end of it, comes with challenges. And so delivery layer is meant to be an out of the box solution to that. So it's sort of a web application that it's like white labeled. Delivery layer, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist. You just log into your company website, and it's like a mashup of a BI tool and a website builder and an API platform, where you've got charts and data tables and graphs of the data that your customers are supposed to see. You can manage all of their permissions and account structures, and you can sell different modules to different customers, and each Coke and Pepsi can log into the same dashboard and never see each other's data. So it's like a web application. They can get all that access via an API, and it's sort of what you would have to spend, a year and a half building anytime that you wanted to launch a data business.
So shop window for your data that people can come and browse and get there, but it's been white labeled to your brand.
less shop window and more like because I'm assuming most companies do their own marketing. They don't need like someone to say, hey, we have this data available, come buy it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Once they bought the data,
It's
okay,
the
so now you
department
bought the
store.
data. Now you need to deliver it. So
Yeah.
delivery layer, right? So it's how you deliver the data that you have already to give to your customers so that they can do something with it.
So I think the link, you had an interesting post the other day, which got probably attention for the wrong reasons. I think so. I don't know what you're referring to, and about data contracts is the topic, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
think yeah. So I mean, the delivery layer, obviously, you're providing that data that someone's provided. In theory, probably by a contract. It might be a visual contract, maybe a structure that you're providing via your delivery layer. So, yes, I mean, I think we're all both in agreement. So, data contracts can add value. I think it is or it can help with the problem. I think your post will say is, but data contracts weren't enough to save a company. I think was what you're referring to.
So let me be clear on that, because my post was tongue in cheek, and it was a reflection of the fact that data contracts are probably one of the most hyped ideas in data over the last year, and that hype came disproportionately from the success of this one company, and that company is now out of business. So
Yeah.
The content of, there are some subtexts to the actual post that for most data people probably understand it. If you read the post very literally, where it says data contracts weren't enough to save Convoy, which is shutting down, then yes, it's very clear data contracts did not cause the downfall of Convoy.
No. We all know that.
The
But not
thing,
everyone that read it did.
not everyone that read it did. Correct. It's tough to do some of these posts.
I found it amusing. It was a great post, and you're highlighting a good subject. The hype cycle is something as well, and you've got to have a good use case. You got a good business to support it. I mean, if the business isn't doing well, it doesn't. You can have the best knives in the world, doesn't make you the best restaurant.
Exactly. And this is the thing with most data quality investment initiatives. Better data quality is always good. Always. Point blank, period. The only question from a business perspective is whether the investment in terms of money and distraction from other problems that you could be solving instead is worth the investment that you're going to get from that improved data quality. Now, data contracts can mean a lot of things, right? Like a data contract can be, in DBT, you're checking to see if schema changes, where something will blow up or alert you if there's a schema change. But in general, the way that I've seen the modern, and you could consider that a data contract, what I've seen most people define in the sort of modern way of data contract is a more in-depth system than that tracks even on developer pull requests, various different downstream potential effects on the data. And I'm highly skeptical that is a solution for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think that it is a huge amount of overhead for a limited amount of value, because oftentimes the things that change when developers change things aren't even things you can test for in a data contract. Like there are some basic things that you can test for, but there are many things, like the column can stay the same and the values can stay reasonably the same, but the meaning of it can change. And so what ends up happening is that all of the ways that companies solve these problems normally, through having a good culture and communication between developers and data people, where you understand and communicate changes, all of those still have to happen if you implement any version of data contracts that I've seen. And the more modern version of data contracts that I've seen pitched have a lot of overhead. And again, the sort of, and I wrote this in the post in the comments, ideas never are just good in abstract in business. You actually need market success to prove, in addition to the theoretical argument. And the biggest market, it's just important for people to realize that the biggest market success of data contracts very shortly after has gone out of business because there were major business problems that were not addressed. Not that data contracts did that, again, to be clear.
Yeah, no, I think with any organisation, focusing on what provides the value, and
Yes.
and obviously, even though we only see one part of it, because obviously Chad's a big LinkedIn presence, but yeah, we didn't hear from if the clients aren't there buying whatever they're selling, you can have the best back end, best contract, best management, best data governance team in the world. It's not going to give you the best solution. So look, we're on the hour actually. So we could have chatted for ages, and hopefully we'll catch up at Ethan's meetup this month if you're about. Looking forward to chatting again, Solomon.
All right, love it, Chris. Thanks for the convo. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
And you, I'm just a big shout out to next week. We got Jason Taylor, JT, who's going to come on next week and talk the value of data matching. So he's threatening. He wants to do it while drinking as well. I don't know if we're going to go quite to cocktails and catalogs style, but we'll see. But thank you very much, Solomon. Thank you all out there listening, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all soon. Thanks, Solomon. Cheers.
All right, bye.